So the way that I would define the metaverse is it's the internet, but more immersive. It's the next evolution of the internet. And I think that's by far the easiest way to think about it. I think a lot of people have been put off or think they don't understand it because there's been a lot of focus on the tech. But another of my mottos is fall in love with the problem, not in love with the solution. And I think that there's been a lot of falling in love with the solution in this space, but actually it is relatively simple what the kind of the promise of the metaverse is. I think it's important to say it doesn't exist yet as kind of a sort of a single entity yet. It's evolving, and I think it's very much on a spectrum. So the what Antonia Forster from Unity talks about is this idea of metaverse traits. So something can have kind of more or less of these metaverse traits. Things like, does it have avatars? Is it multi-user? Is it persistent? Does it contain user-generated content or things like ownership? And that is, so basically the more or less of those something has, the more metaversey or less metaversey it is. And so things like Fortnite do tick a lot of those boxes. Things like Animal Crossing tick a lot of those boxes. Immersive learning can tick some of those boxes, even if you're not doing it in kind of a multi-user environment. So that's where we are at the moment, is there's kind of a spectrum, and then we're hopefully moving towards a version of it that is more like more like the internet, in the sense of it's kind of part of people's lives, and it's established as kind of a single thing that people think about, but made up of lots of different parts. I think it's more important than ever for businesses to find ways of kind of keeping up with the pace of change. And I talk about this idea of organizational rhythm, and that's something that you have to be looking to increase in order to keep pace with what is incredibly rapid change, and that is becoming more rapid all the time. You only need to look at the last few years of the pandemic to see how valuable adaptability and how important adaptability is for businesses. And so it is vital that they do this. And I think that has to be the first step, is recognizing how vital it is, but also that there aren't right answers. The thing that you need to do is figure out how to be adaptable, because no one is going to be able to tell you what's going to happen next year or in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time. The only thing that you can do is make yourself adaptable enough, resilient enough in order to deal with that. And so the way to do that is by developing kind of a culture of experimentation. You need to be able to figure out how to then turn those experiments into scale, and figure out what is kind of the route through the business, and the business needs to be ready to kind of accept that. But doing those experiments, I think, is really important. And then having kind of a coherent overall vision, I think, is really key too. We talk about this idea of a tangible hypothesis, and that's this idea of really thinking big, and then, as we say, experimenting. So starting small, testing often with those experiments, and then figuring out how to scale. So having the right environment to take those new ideas, those new trends, those new technologies, and allow them to kind of deliver benefit throughout the business. And kind of all of those things do need to be in place for you to be able to take advantage of this successfully. I think going back to kind of my core motto, which is this idea of falling in love with the problem, not in love with the solution, I think that's really, really key. So when we talk about that vision, it's important that that vision articulates the core problem that your organization is trying to solve, and you don't get distracted by every shiny new solution and technology for technology's sake, because with the pace of change being what it is, it's very easy to get distracted by all of this new technology. So that falling in love with the problem, not in love with the solution, is kind of another vital first step. So recognizing there's a problem, recognizing you need to adapt to the increasing pace of change, but then understanding that you're understanding what your problem as an organization is that you need to solve, and being then focused on doing that and experimenting in order to figure out the best way to do that. I think that the exciting thing about where we're at now is that any experience that you want to deliver for your customers is either possible to do right now, or you can put in place the building blocks to do it in the next 3 to 5 years. And so this is why it's really important to take a step back and think about the problem that you're trying to solve and what that experience is that you want to create for customers. Because rather than in the past, we were kind of constrained by what we could do. Right now, we're not constrained by that. So if you think about what it is that experience, if you're very clear on what experience it is you want to create, and you've got that clear idea across the organization of what that experience is that you want to create, then you will be able to start to iterate towards it. And I think that is that's a very exciting time that we're in. But yeah, so when we say how an organization is going to engage consumers, they can do it literally in whichever way they want. And so that's through using virtual reality, but also augmented reality as well. So, if you want them to appear in a place, or if you want them to meet someone who they would otherwise not be able to meet, or go to the moon, or whatever like that, any experience you want to create, any emotion you want to generate, you can do that. And so it's more important than ever to really take a step back and think about what it is that you want to do. So how practically are people going to achieve that? As I say, augmented reality, and that's at the moment primarily based on using people's mobiles, but actually the Snap have some the next generation of their spectacles are coming out, which is which show the really exciting possibilities for that sort of glass, that sort of glasses form factor. And then you've got the new the VR headsets as well. The bounds between those will be sort of increasingly blurred, but then you can also see how brands are engaging people through metaverse-like experiences such as Roblox and Fortnite and things like that. So there are a lot of different possibilities and a lot of different ways to do it. I think the crucial thing is, because there's that there is such a range of possibilities, you then need to be the need for focus is even more important than it has been before. When I talk about the positive vision for the metaverse, I think this is the thing that I'm referring to. For me, the crucial thing for it to deliver on its potential as a positive force for good, I think the metaverse needs to drive connection between people and with our planet. And so the thing is, I think initially people were talking about virtual reality, particularly as a very isolating experience. I think it's very important to make clear again that the metaverse is not just about virtual reality, but I think now the exciting thing is there are more and more multi-user experiences. It's allowing people to connect who otherwise wouldn't be able to, and driving that sort of connection, and potentially allowing people to be in the shoes of someone else in a way that they might not otherwise be able to. And I think in terms of connecting with the planet, I think augmented reality has the power to do that, and the power to kind of tell very effective, immersive stories about where we are and kind of highlighting the problems that we face. And so I think that's a really key thing. One thing that we've been collaborating on recently is the LGBTQ+ VR museum. So when we talk about the idea of connecting with people, the museum is a great example of that, because it allowed you to connect with the stories of members of the queer community through objects that were really important to them. And that sort of connection that was able to foster, something that wasn't possible in kind of reality, just because getting funding for that type of museum and a space for that type of museum just wasn't practical. That was something that we were able to do, and was that was, again, it was Antonia Forster who was kind of the brains behind that, but she was able to do that in a virtual space. And so I think it's those type of things that really do help drive connection between people. Those are the things that will drive this idea of it being a force for good. I think the big trends in 2023 will be to an extent around kind of convergence of different things. I think an exciting example of this, one of the most exciting things that's been happening in 2022, is the speed of development of generative AI. So how things like DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney have been creating images, and that comes with a whole host of problems around reimbursement of artists and things like that. But the speed of the innovation has been absolutely mind-blowing. And I think what we're starting to see now is that is starting to combine with things, immersive experiences, in order to create incredible new experiences. So what we're seeing is AI generated virtual worlds using tools like Stable Diffusion. And I think the possibilities for stuff like that are really huge. So I think you're going to start to see, and also another kind of similar trend is so-called NeRFs, the neural radiance fields. So they're able to generate very kind of accurate and detailed 3D models of spaces just from like a few photographs or a short video. And again, those I think the possibilities of kind of combining those artificial intelligence and machine learning tools with the kind of the immersive tools that we're seeing, I think there's some really exciting possibilities off the back of that. So I think that I don't think we're going to see the sort of widespread adoption just in 2023, but I guess we're probably going to start to see more stories that that kind of are moving us in that direction. But partially, because I think that we're going to start to see more interesting stories moving that direction. I mean, when you think about how much has happened in 2022, it's pretty mental that at the start of 2022, everyone was talking about NFTs. I very definitely wasn't talking about NFTs, certainly not in a positive way. And we've had all of that hype cycle has happened in kind of the last 12 months or 18 months. And so, to be fair, a lot could happen in 2023.